RTO here on the first day of the Platinum Jubilee celebrations. We've got something later for you in sort of honour for it, but I'll talk about that towards the end. So today is, of course, Battle of the Debuts. And today we go north of the border to two bands that were very big in the 80s. We're talking about Simple Minds and Big Country. So, Simple Minds, a Scottish rock band formed in Glasgow, 1976. Had a huge success in the album charts and the singles charts. They performed at Live Aid, and they have had a very good career. I've seen them once at Milton Keynes Bowl and they were pretty impressive. So let's go back to where it all started, way back in 1979. And Life in a Day, released in April of 1979. On the band at the time were Jim Kerr on lead vocals, Charles Burchill on guitar, Derek Forbes on the bass, Brian McGee on drums, Michael McNeil on keyboards, and the producer was John Leckie. First track on here is a track called Someone. This track has actually got all of the leftovers of the post-punk era. Some great guitar work on here from Charles Burchill. The keyboards are really freaky, but it's not a bad track. I don't mind that one at all. The second track is the title track, Life in a Day. Now this one is more new wave. It's got that keyboard sound, that Gary Newman sort of sound that he did. It's quite quirky as well. A really good track. Then we get Sad Affair. Now we go back to more the post-punk. It's got some really good guitar work here from Charles Burchill again. Excellent track. All For You. Now this is one of these tracks. It's quite post-punk, but it's got little bits of the new wave that was coming in. It sort of sits on the fence, this one. It doesn't quite know where to go. Pleasantly Disturbed. As the title says, it is pleasantly disturbed. It's strange. It doesn't fit into post-punk. It doesn't fit into new wave. It sort of sits there. A track that's a little bit confused. Not quite sure where we're going to go with it. But highlights of this is Jim Kerr's vocal on it. Very strong vocal. And it is a pretty good track, even though we don't know if it's post-punk or new wave. It just sits there and it's one of the distinctive tracks on the album. Next track is No Cure. This is just a mixture of post-punk, new wave, and it's got a little bit of glam in there. It's very Virginia Plain. If you remember Virginia Plain by Roxy Music, it's very much like that. It's in that sort of vein. Wasteland. Again, we're going back to some more post-punk here. It's a really strong track, and I do like that one. Then we get Destiny. This is my favourite track on the album. It's very Blondie. That sound is very Blondie. You're half expecting Debbie Harry to start singing, but you don't. You get Jim, which is pretty good. Then the last track on the album is a track called Murder Story. Now, this one sounds more like something that Sparks was doing at the time. It's a good track, but it sounds more like Sparks. Got no problem with that. So, what do I think of this? Well, I think this is a really interesting album. But what lets it down is its lack of direction. It's a mishmash of higgledy-piggledy, trying different textures, different ideas. So there's no consistency with the album, but all the tracks are really good. Oh, I missed out a track, Chelsea Girl. I do apologise. Yeah, another track that sounds very Roxy Music. Um, yeah, it's a half decent album. I've got no problems with it. I do play it, and put something a bit different from Simple Minds. Put this one on. So, what did the critics think? Well, and there's not much about. I did find a really good one though from Andy Kellman of AllMusic, and he rated. I'll quote this. He rated the album as the lowest of Simple Minds' first 5 album releases, remarking on its sounding of Roxy music. He praised the lyrics and arrangements despite noting the influences of 1970s music, and rated Murder Story as a standout track. Although noting the album has overproduced and undermined in the band's sound, he rated the album favourably. In 2012, Jim Kerr himself expressed the regret that the album's production had resulted in the tracks lacking a real spark that was part of their live performances, and described his feelings about the album as bitter-sweet. Well, the fans didn't mind it. I mean, it reached number 30 in the album charts, top 30 album on your first outing. The single Chelsea Girl 62 didn't do very well. So, and the title track up didn't either. So, they went on and did better. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. I found some other sort of no reviews, but what they gave it. So AllMusic, as we know, gave it 2 and a bit stars. Martin C. Strong gave it 7 out of 10. NME gave it favourable, and Smash Hits gave it an 8 out of 10. So let's have a look at the nuts and bolts of these. Song quality. I think, as Andy Kellman said, there's some really good tracks on here. The lyric and the arrangements are pretty good. So I'm going to give that a 4 out of 5. Production. And I think I agree with both Andy Kellman and Jim Kerr. Now, if Jim Kerr says this, he must be right. It is a bit lacklustre. I think it didn't really emphasise and give the true sound of Simple Minds that other albums did. So I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. Reception. I think he had a mixed bag. I mean, top 30 on your first album, that's pretty good, I think, considering at the time the music was changing. So I'm going to give Reception a 4 out of 5. Now, cover design. I really don't know what is going on there. It doesn't really explain nothing, does it? It's an okay cover, it's not bad, but it doesn't really jump out at me. So I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5. So for A Life in a Day by Simple Minds, their total are 14 out of 20. Okay then, next contender please. And it is, here we go, Big Country. Formed in Dunfermline, Fife in 1981. Very popular band. Smash hits all over the place. Folk and rock, Celtic sound. Bagpipes were in there, really good. And their debut album, The Crossing, was released in July 1983. What is the incredible thing about it? They actually recorded it in May. So they recorded it in May 1983 and released it in July 1983. So this was literally go in the studio, record it and go. Incredible. So who plays on this? Well, we've got the late and great Stuart Adamson on vocals and piano, Bruce Watson on guitar, mandolin, sitar and ebo, Tony Butler on the bass, Mark Brzezinski on the drums as ever, and we got Christine Beveridge doing additional vocals, and it was produced by the fantastic Steve Lillywhite. First track on this album is that iconic one, In a Big Country. Great sound, love the guitars on this, it's really uplifting as well. Inwards, that's a little bit experimental here, sounds very U2. If you remember when we ranked these, I did say about this album sounding a little bit U2-ish. I got sort of spanked for putting it near the bottom, but hey ho. Chance, I love this. Very catchy tune, nice hook. It is a fantastic song, one of my favourite songs by Big Country. 1,000 Stars, again, this sounds so U2, it's unreal, but it doesn't make it a bad track. As I kept saying, these are not bad tracks. The Storm, I love the guitar work on this from Bruce Watson, really good. And you got Stuart Adams, great vocal on that, terrific track. Harvest Home, another solid track, and this one has got a unique sound, and it's a sound that they would work on, and it would be define their music. Lost Patrol. This is a cross between U2 and the Waterboys. I'm not saying it's a bad track, but they hadn't really discovered their own identity. Bit like Simple Minds, they sort of took on what they liked, and there's no problem with that. Close Action, it's a track that I've never been keen on. It did lack something. It just was a bit lackluster. Fields of Fire, classic track, isn't it? Again, one of the tracks that really started to define the sound of Big Country. Love the guitar work on this, and the drums from Mark Brzezinski is terrific on that. Then we got one of my favourite songs by Big Country, and it's Porrohman. I think Mark Brzezinski's drumming on this is superb. The guitar work is great. Stuart's vocals are brilliant. You get that really great Tony Butler bass line. Again, this is top drawer, and it's always been one of my favourite tracks by the band. Okay, what do I think of this? As I said, remember I ranked these long time ago, and they hadn't, I said, and I still believe this after listening to it again, I think they hadn't really found their identity. I got a lot of stick for it because everyone thought, I think one person switched off because I put this near the bottom. You got to remember, we all hear things differently, and when you put, like with these two albums, you have to listen to them and see, really scrutinise them. And as I said, they did sound like U2, and sometimes they even sounded like what Simple Minds were doing at the time from their second album. So they're all sort of connected, but on the whole, it's a great album, and I do like this album. I love it a lot. But the singles, I think the singles had given them an identity, but it was the rest of the tracks. They were still experimenting. I mean, they went for that commercial sound for like In a Big Country and Fields of Fire, which is great, and they were successful singles. So yeah, I do like the album. There's not much information out there about them either, of the reviews. Critic Kurt Loder of Rolling Stone gave the album a glowing review. He said, "Here's a big noise guitar band from Britain," I remember this is an American, "that blows the knobs off all synth pop diddlers and fake funk frauds who are cluttering up the charts these days. Big Country mops up the fops on an air raid guitar that sounds anything else alike around." I mean, I think a lot of this as well has got to do with the producer, because Steve Lillywhite produced U2, of course, in the early days. So I think it's good. They have got no synthesizers, and he said, and that extraordinary twin guitar sound should make The Crossing a must-owned item of rock diehards. Absolutely right. All Music gave it only 1 star. Blender give it 2 stars. Classic Rock give it a 10 out of 10. The Orlando Sentinel gave it 4 stars. Philadelphia Inquirer 5. Record Mirror 6. Rolling Stone 7. The Album Guide of the Rolling Stone give it 8. Smash Hits give it a 4 out of 10. And the Village Voice gave it a 10. How do the fans take it? Well, it got to number 3 here in the UK. Number 18 in America, which is pretty good. I was impressed with that. Canada, it got to number 4. Australia 21, Dutch 11, and Sweden 17. So it did do well. So let's have a look at the nuts and bolts of this one. Song quality. Always good songs from Big Country from the start. It's fantastic. I love the songs on this. And I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Production. But when you've got Steve Lillywhite producing you, you know you're going to get a good album. And you do. The production on this is great. And this is 1983. There's none of that horrible cleaned up noise. This is raw Scottish rock. And I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Reception. It went down a storm. The singles broke the charts. The album did well over here. I think it did well in most places. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Cover design. It's basic. Okay. It's got the Big Country logo. It's bright blue. And it's eye-catching. When you put these two covers up against each other, your eyes are drawn to Big Country every time because it's so bold and blue. So I'm going to give cover design a 4. So it's all the 4s for Big Country. The Crossing, and it gives them a total of 16. So in that, it is a win for Big Country. And I tend to agree. I think out of the 2 albums, I prefer The Crossing. Always have. I think Simple Minds is a cracking album. I just think it was a little bit too experimental. But they came back strong with their second album, and they didn't really look back then. I just think Big Country got better and better as they went on. A lot of people don't think so, but musically they did. So I'm going to give today's winner is The Crossing by Big Country by a country mile. I think better sounding, better quality, and more memorable. And out of the 2, I do play this one a lot more. Okay, that's all for this week. So don't forget, that's what I think, but if you've got some love for Simple Minds, put it down in the comments below. And let's see who wins this one. Okay then, we've got 3 album artworks for you today. Basically, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it's in celebration of 70 years of the Queen being our monarch here in the UK. It was put together by myself and Mastermind Dave. We had a lot of fun doing it. Took a little while to work out because there were so many albums. I won't go into the details, but that you've got 3 today. All for the price of 1. So I will see you for that later. Bye for now.